Hi everyone, hope everybody's doing well in the tribe. Just been watching everybody's videos, there's some really good stuff out there, and just thought I'd make another little video on a topic. I try and have a little topic I want to discuss each time, and this one's about souls, and individual soul journey really, and realising that or possibly wondering where we came from before we were, let's say, part of this human experience. And just first off, I just chat a little bit about me as a kid. I won't go on too much, but one thing I've realised is that I just don't fit in with the main collective of people. The system, if you want to call it that. I never have, and I couldn't if I wanted to, and that's the thing. And I think you're probably the same. I've always been a misfit, and I think everybody in this tribe is a misfit, and that's why we're here. I don't think it's a coincidence why we're here at all. And it's happened really quickly, hasn't it? I think it's meant to be, finding, those like-minded individuals kind of where you belong, because it's been a while for me. I mean, from school, I instinctively knew I was different, and that's not being egotistical. I was dyslexic. Well, I probably still am. So I had a learning difficulty, but dyslexia is pretty common. I went to a special needs school because of that when I was very young, and that was mainly full of kids who were problem children, really, maybe due to bad parents, or there were special needs there. Maybe some of them were autistic or something, but I remember that I didn't fit in there at all. I remember going around the playground just keeping myself to myself with my sandwiches and my 6p for the tuck shop, just on my own, looking at all these groups of people. And I mean, you have stereotypes of people, didn't you? But for a reason, like the bullies, and then you have the the nerds, the intellectuals. It's funny. You probably could tell. I could put people. This person is more of a physical, person. In America call them jocks. This person's more of a nerd. I'm not being horrible, but and me, I was just neither. I was always on a different planet than most people, and I remember I've always lost stuff. I've always losing things. I remember when I was really young, my mum would pick me up from school, and I'd have my blazer on back to front and my tie on back to front. I'd have a shoe missing, and my mum wondered how on earth I managed to get in that state. I just remember her giving me that Mars bar and driving me home. I remember in the car just watching the trees just passing by, going, "Thank God that's over." I didn't really want any of it. I'm sure lots of people have, experiences at school like that. Another case I remember was when it was some big art project towards the end of the year, near Christmas time, and we were allowed to draw whatever we wanted, and the winner would be something like the artist of the year for that class or something like that. And I was reading Dandy Beano comics and Dennis the Menace kind of comics, that kind of style, because I loved I didn't just love drawing kind of fantasy art. I loved the comics, that's kind of style, and I chose that as the kind of style I wanted, of the art I wanted to do. And I drew like a teacher in a classroom with his arms folded, and then kind of like a Dennis the Menace character drawing lines on a blackboard. And I thought, oh, that's good, because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't do it to offend anybody or to kind of, rebel against the system. That's just what I wanted to do, and it didn't go down well with the teacher, of course. She grilled me when everybody was out the classroom, I think it was like for the Christmas holidays. She basically said something on the lines of, don't you realise where you are? Don't you realise that is not acceptable? She said to me something like, you really need to sit down with yourself and change if you're going to make it in this world. And I couldn't do that if I tried, just at my usual kind of spot where I do my talks. And but anyhow, this led me to thinking, okay, so we don't fit in with the system. And I remember Thomas saying something on the lines of, right now there's never been so many bodies to basically incarnate in. We're sport for choice at the moment. I remember him saying, and I find this very interesting, the amount of souls that are on this planet right now is far disproportionate to the actual amount of bodies that are either soulless or maybe unrealized souls who are basically unaware of their existence, because if this is the case, I wonder if going back in time, say a few hundred years ago, if the population of souls was the same back then, or maybe even there may be different types of souls incarnating right now than they weren't, say, a few hundred years ago. It's just a thought, because I wonder about myself. I wonder, what kind of soul am I? I have a feeling I'm an old soul, but just because I'm an old soul, it doesn't mean to say that I'm old to this world. It doesn't mean to say I'm old to the human experience. It just makes me wonder. I mean, some people pick up trades or skills really easy, didn't they? Some people seem to be able to be really good at making things with their hands, metal work. Some people, well, like when I was at school, I struggled with math, and I watched people just breeze through it. Struggled remembering how to spell and things like that. Bad directions in memorising left and right. That was my dyslexia, apparently. But I wonder maybe if it's something else. Maybe I'm a new soul that's very new to the human experience. I mean, I'm good at art. I have imagination. I'm good at drawing. I don't need to measure things to basically. I'm not fantastic, but I can basically copy a picture very effectively, and I don't need to have a picture in front of me to produce something. I can go in my imagination, like I'm sure you can. I wonder where I got that skill from. Because maybe the trades and the skills that people learn are learned in previous lives. You don't know. I think that's really possible. Maybe the blacksmith was a blacksmith in a past life, etc. I think there's something to that. But another thing that I was thinking about is, where did we come from, each of us, before we had this human experience, before we were incarnating and being human? What were we before then? Because we could be far older than we think. We could have had many incarnations in other realities, in other dimensions, in other bodies that aren't physical like these, that don't have the kind of duality that we're experiencing right now. And so, you know, I was wondering if you're interested in, like I am, in, you know, demons, ghosts, fairies, dragons, mythical creatures, is it because on some level that's a part of you? It could be that you exist in these worlds, in these dimensions where these entities are real. And another question to pop is, you know, if you're like me and you've had encounters with beings and entities, I'm sure many of you have, as a child and even through your adulthood, where did you get that ability from? You know, people who are clairvoyant, people who say they're psychic, people who can see the future, people who can see, you know, entities and nature spirits, and, you know, all the good, the bad, the ugly. Where did they get that ability from? Is it an otherworldly ability that they inherited before they were human? And here's another kind of thought that may make you a bit uncomfortable, but it's something I thought of, is maybe you were one of these beings before you had this human experience, because you would have had to start it from somewhere. You would have had to have come from somewhere. It might be shocking. You know, what was human before we were human? What was this human soul before it had the human experience? Because just briefly, I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, and 80s cartoons were pretty good, and I remember watching, just going to cut through some foresty areas here, I remember watching Dungeons and Dragons, and that was a really good 80s cartoon. If you're like me, I'm 41, so if you're like me, you may remember that. And the intro was really good. They were kind of at a fairground ride, and they were going on a fairground ride, and in the ride they went through this big dragon's mouth on a roller coaster, and then they slipped basically into another dimension, in another reality. You saw everything bend and warp and move kind of circular, and then they were somewhere else, and they were dressed differently, they had different roles, they had different abilities and powers. And it kind of made me think that maybe we exist simultaneously in these other dimensions, where we even had literally another physical form, you know. Maybe we really were fairy, fae, jinn, demons, before we had the human experience. Maybe we were very unsympathetic to the emotions that we're feeling now. Maybe we couldn't understand it until we had this experience. And immediately when you have the human experience, it changes everything, and you evolve, and you can empathise with what you couldn't before. It's interesting when Thomas talks about demons. He says, you know, that, and I've heard this from other people, that many of them are impersonal to us, and they don't like it if you pull them into this world, into this dimension, when they didn't ask for it. And that's when they get a little upset. And others maybe are jealous of us. They just want this experience, they want to experience pleasure, but they don't care for the other experiences of empathy, emotion, love, compassion, things like that. But maybe there are others that genuinely are curious. They have not let's say, like, not a shallow kind of motivation just to experience the pleasures of base pleasures, like food, sex. They genuinely are very interested and want this experience, and they genuinely want to become human. So they do, and maybe this is us. It's a kind of crazy thought, but in a way it could well be true. What was I before I became human? And am I new to this? That's why I sometimes struggle to relate to people. And yeah, so you could even be one of those entities that you not say you despise, but that you're wary of. If we were to when we pass on, when we leave these bodies, physical bodies, temporarily, perhaps before we incarnate again, we would go into those realms, and we'd be maybe actually absolutely shocked or fascinated that we look like some of these creatures that we see. It's just an interesting thought that I would just throw out there. So yeah, I guess that wraps up the video on souls and past lives, etc. Anyway, I hope everybody's keeping well. I think that's all for now. I can't think of anything else to say, and look forward to hearing from you all and watching your videos. And take care. Cheers.